Good afternoon, everyone. It's Kate Kalthoff, and welcome to a Stampin' Chat with Kay. We're going to be exploring a couple of techniques today with watercolor pencils, and I know some of you feel frustrated with coloring, and you know what? I gotcha. I understand that feeling too, because coloring is not always my go-to thing that I like to do, but I can do it, and so I'm going to pass along some tips that can help you maybe as you explore watercoloring with our Stampin' Up! Watercolor pencils. And so it's great to see you. Welcome everybody. Hi, Dab is here and Teresa's here and Donna's here. Thank you so much for tuning in, you guys. It's great to see you. I have a couple of cards that I'll be sharing today. And yes, both cards came in the mail. One came last week. I think it must have been Friday or Saturday. And the other one came today, just today. And so I'll be sharing both of those with you. It's great to have you here. I've got a really busy week this week. So the only video that I'm doing this week, the only Facebook Live, is today. And then I'm taking a little break from my business just for a few days here. Have some things that I need to get done. So we'll just leave it at that. And I will get this camera put down. I'm just kind of looking here and seeing what you're all saying. Hello, hello. We'll get this camera put down and we will get started. All right, so let me do that. Give me a second. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the cards that I got in the mail. I always love to share these with you. The first card uses the beautiful Lasting Lily set that we had in our celebration offering. That was January through March. This set, of course, is no longer available, but we love using our retired sets and making beautiful cards with them. And this is from one of my downline members who lives in South Dakota. So Joyce Paulson sent this to me, and I love, love, love the way she added a wink of Stella to these beautiful lilies, and it just sparkles and shines as I move it around. And then of course she has a little bit of an anchoring background here in the shimmery white doily, and so it's just beautiful, and the yellow and blue go so well together. I just love it. So it really brightened my day. Thank you so much, Joyce. And the second card that I wanted to share with you, I got in the mail just today. It's from one of our watchers. So thank you so much. Nancy Reynolds sent this card to me, and it uses that cute little fold that she has the punch box. I think it's called the Darling Punch Box, one of the stamps from that set. And then it's the cute little fold. And so she's got a square back here and then another square that she's folded up. And it just looks so darling. And then, of course, she folded it in and folded it back out. And it's just cute. And she's got a couple of sequins on here. And I think the black really makes this whole thing pop. She's got Petal Promenade paper as well, which looks so beautiful. So thank you so much, Nancy. It was such a treat to get this in my mailbox today. I really liked it. I jumped for joy. So thank you again. All right, so let's go ahead and look at the card that we're going to make today, and then you can see kind of what we're going to be giving away to our winners next week. Yes, I will not do the drawing for this. When will I do the drawing for this? Probably not until Friday. So Friday morning, I will be back here and I will do a little drawing, and I'll give away 2 cards made with this stamp set called Peaceful Place. They'll look just like this. Look at how cute the inside is with this little squirrel here. And I will also give away 2 yards of our copper trim. Now the copper trim has been on back order for a while. I'm not sure if it's in now or not, but I did have an extra roll, so I was able to use that. We are also on this card using some metallic brads. And so it's just a really cute and easy card. And as you can see, it is colored with the watercolor pencils. So I'm going to share some great ideas for that. So it's great to see all of you guys coming on. You might want to say, you know, what your experience has been with watercoloring. Do you love it? Do you hate it? I'm going to tell you right now that if you are interested in learning about watercoloring, you pretty much have to put your perfectionistic self to the side, because I don't think perfectionism and watercoloring go hand in hand. They are kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum. You really have to go with the flow when it comes to watercoloring, whether you're doing it with acrylic paint or, well, actually, I don't even think you can watercolor with acrylic paint. That was kind of a silly statement. Whether you're watercoloring with paints or inks or watercolor pencils, you really have to let that perfectionism kind of go by the wayside and just go with the flow. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Donna's saying she can't do mornings. Well, Donna, this is just a drawing. It's not a big deal. It's Friday morning, and you will just get a notification on Facebook if you're the winner. So it's not really a problem. I won't be doing a Facebook Live this week except for the one that you're watching right now. So you're in on it, so no worries. All right, so let's go ahead and get started recreating this card. We are going to use the Peaceful Place stamp set from Stampin' Up. It's in our annual 2018-19 catalog. And, whoops, I got the stamps already out of it. So I've got that all set up. Let me grab it. It is right here. I have it on my Stamparatus because there's a reason for that. Hold on. Let me grab the supplies. That's what I was looking for. We are going to be using watercolor paper. So one of the things that can help you be more successful with watercoloring is to use a paper that's designed for watercoloring. So I'm going to show you two techniques. One where we're using just our regular vanilla paper, and then one where we're actually using watercolor paper. So this is our Stampin' Up! Watercolor paper. It's 3 3/4 inches by 4.5. That's the size that we're going to start with here. And what I want to do is set this up into my Stamparatus. And I've already figured out where this needs to go. So if I close this up, I can see where I want to put this. So what I do is I just make sure that my mat is up here in the corner. And then I go ahead and I'm putting my watercolor paper so it's right here in this little section where the 1 inch from the top and the 1 inch from the right side come together. And that way, when I put this over and use my Stamparatus, everything will stamp really beautifully, because you don't want to stamp too close to the edges with the Stamparatus. That's not how this particular style of Stamparatus is designed to work. You want to keep it more in the middle. So it's really, really helpful to pay attention to where your grid lines are for when you're using it. So what we're going to do is we're going to use Stays On Black ink. Because with watercoloring, you want to be sure that you're using an ink. Now, you could use Memento Black as well, but I'm choosing to use Stays On because I always have liked Stays On, and I especially like using it with our red rubber stamps. And so what I'm doing is I'm just inking this up, the red rubber, and I'm just going to now close the Stamparatus up. And then we're just going to press it on here. And if I don't get a good image the first time, because the watercolor paper has a lot of texture, and so sometimes you have to do this a couple of times to make sure that you get a good image. And as you can see, this is a little bit light. So, and I probably should have re-inked my Stays On, and I don't think I did that. But that's okay, because we can just take this and ink it up again. And we are going to try again here. So not moving it, just putting it right back in. Oh, look at that. We get a much better, much darker image the second time around. That's the beauty of using a Stamparatus. Another thing that's wonderful about using the Stamparatus is if I want to make a multiples of these cards, I can just go ahead and take this out and put another one in and just keep using it. All right, so let me close this up because we don't need it anymore. We've got a really nice image right here. And it's time to get our pencils out. And I'm going to show you what we're using. So Stampin' Up! Has watercolor pencils, which is what I'm using today. And I'm using the following colors. I'm going to use Early Espresso, Daffodil Delight, Bermuda Bay, Pacific Point, Basic Gray, and Old Olive. And it doesn't really matter too much which order that you use them in, but I'm just going to start by taking the Early Espresso, and I'm just going to color in And really, there's no rhyme or reason to this coloring in. I'm just coloring in here the riverbanks. You can see there's some water that runs through this picture, and so there's like a riverbank, so I'm going to use the early espresso to do that. There's a couple of rocks back there, so I want to make those rocks gray, so I can take the basic gray and just color in those rocks there in the background, and then color in these rocks here in the foreground. And as you can see, I'm not really worrying about coloring it perfectly, because that's the beauty of watercoloring. Once you add the water, it's going to all kind of flow out and look really nice. So the next thing that I want to do is I want to go ahead and start working on this tree over here. And so again, we're going to use early espresso, and we're going to do the branches and the tree trunk just with early espresso. And again, you don't have to be too particular about how you do it, so I just kind of draw in the lines like so wherever I see a branch. Okay, and don't worry, we're not going to color this whole picture, but I'm just going to share some techniques with you because I do have one prepared in advance. So the next thing to do would be to take the old olive, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to start coloring in some of this foliage, all these leaves up here in the tree. Whoops, oh my goodness, I used the wrong color. I used Bermuda Bay. So imagine that to be old olive. I'll just continue on here as if I had used old olive. But the Bermuda Bay we would be putting on the water. So you can see, here's the old olive. And also I will put that onto my trees in the background here. So we've got some pine trees back here, and then some pine trees here in the foreground. So I'm just coloring these in, and again, it's something you can do in front of the TV or maybe watching a movie. You know, enjoy the moment, be relaxed with it, and just kind of color in. And again, don't be too fussy about it. Don't worry about it. I'm just gonna take this old olive and try to color over the top of my Bermuda Bay because it's kind of distracting me. And I want to show you the next step with coloring your leaves, because if we bring in the original picture that I did, you can see there's a little bit of yellow in the tree, and that's another thing you can do. You can add additional colors with your pencils to add kind of that watercolor look and get different hues and variations within that color family. So I'm going to take the Daffodil Delight now, and we can just go in and just color a little bit of yellow. Just add some little yellow dots up into the leaves. That's going to just give that tree a little more depth, make it look a little bit more springy. I'm thinking of this picture as kind of a springtime picture, and at least here in Minnesota, when we get our new leaves on the tree, they always have a little tinge of yellow on them. And then of course in the background, you would, anywhere you see cross hatches, you want to go in and make those a little bit darker with your pencils. So I usually go in and do those first. So we've got the hillside here where I colored in the cross hatches pretty darkly. Then I can just go in and just lightly color all over with that old olive. And so to do the water, because I've kind of shown you how to do the trees and the banks, with the water you're just going to take your Pacific Point, and again you're just going to kind of color in on wherever there's some markings on your water here, because that's where you want your accents to be. So you can kind of see wherever the ripples are is where you want to add your darker Pacific Point color. Then we take the Bermuda Bay and we just lightly go over the top, all over it. So you just want to color the whole thing all over with the Bermuda Bay. The Bermuda Bay color also makes a really nice sky. So once I have this all colored, then I just go in real lightly with my Bermuda Bay and color in all of my background just like this. Okay? So that's kind of the idea of what we're going for with our colors. And so let me show you one that I've already colored, which looks like this. So let me bring it up to the camera here so that you can see what this looks like. And you can see that I did not make any big mistakes. I kept the green. The greens were Old Olive and the Daffodil Delight here in the tree. I wasn't trying to put Bermuda Bay in it like I was when I was showing you how to do it. So that's what it looks like when it's all colored. And just 1 second, I have to walk across the room and grab a finished piece so that, because once I put water on this, it's going to kind of crinkle up. And it's going to be, I won't be able to put it on my card right away. So I have to grab a finished one that we can, you know, that's all dry, that we can use on the card. So I have a few of those because, again, I was pretty anxious to make sure that I gave you some ideas of what the difference is. So I'm going to show you. Here's a finished one. And here's one that just has the watercolor pencil. So can you see the difference between the two? And how nice it looks once you've added your water to it. So let me show you how to add the water to it so you get a really nice kind of controlled looking image here. Well, I wouldn't say it's controlled, but as best as can be. So let's go ahead and do that. So how I do that is I'm going to take my spritzer from Stampin' Up, and what I do is I also want to have a Kleenex handy. So grab a Kleenex when you're ready to do this. So take your spritzer. Oh, and the other thing you want to have handy, there's a few things you want to have handy. So you want to have your spritzer handy, your Kleenex handy, and you want to have an aqua pen handy, because this is going to help you kind of swirl the color around a little bit. But the first thing that you have to do is get your water onto your picture that you're doing. So after everything is all colored in, just take your water and hold it far enough away, because this is another mistake. You don't want to get your spritzer too close in. It's going to glob the water a little too much. So I'm going to take this spritzer and hold it way outside of the camera. I'm probably about a foot away, and I am just spritzing over the top. And you can see it's getting much more, oh, it's just getting so rich. It just looks so rich and gorgeous. So I'm going to quickly hold it up to the camera so you can see how just a spritz of water adds so much richness to this. But what I want to do next is I'm going to take my Kleenex and just lightly go over the top and take some of that excess water away. Now you notice I didn't press it down because I don't want to get rid of all of that water. I just want to get rid of some of it. So then I can take my aqua pen and I'm going to go in and just kind of finish out some of this blending here. And so you can see I'm doing the water first. Then I can go back to my Kleenex and take away some of that blue that I used, and I can blend the river banks a little bit more so that there's not too much white showing. And then I can go back here and blend this river bank in a little bit. And again, as I change colors, I'm just going to go ahead and take that excess color off onto my Kleenex here. And then I can go into and just intensify the sky by just blending the sky a little bit. And I'm kind of careful. I don't want to get too close to these trees because that's going to bring in a lot of green into the sky. Not that that would be such a bad thing, but I want to keep it a little more true blue. So there we go. And then, I mean, the trees look really good. I don't feel like I need to do a lot of blending on the trees. They actually look really good to me. So I'm going to leave them be. However, I know that sometimes I was tempted to go in and do the trees. So it just kind of depends on what it looks like after you get the water spritzed on it. So now you'll notice that this is curling quite a bit. And that's normal. It's going to do that. But once it's dried, so if you give it about, 10 or 15 minutes or so, just set it aside and let it dry, it will flatten out and it will look like this. You know, it flattens right out over time. And so now what I've got here is this one that I worked in advance. And I did all of the watercoloring on here already and spritzed it, and it's all ready to go onto my card. So let's go ahead and stamp that little squirrel and do the squirrel, because we are going to use watercolor pencils on him as well, but we're not going to use an aqua pen. We're not going to use the spritzer. We are going to use the Stampin' Up! blender pen to do that little squirrel. So we've got a 4 by 5 1/4 inch piece of Very Vanilla. And again, I'm going to take this little squirrel image, and this is all we're doing for the inside. We're just gonna stamp this little squirrel here in the lower left. He's just such a cutie. I love him. And then we're gonna take our pencils and we're just going to color in some of those darker areas on the tail. And again, I'm using some brown here, but I also want to add in some gray because squirrels typically are kind of a brownish gray. And so even though I'm adding some brown right here, what I'm going to do next is grab the basic gray and add in some gray to the tail and to the body. And then also up here in the face, but not too much. I'm leaving the face more open. And then of course he's sitting on a little rock, so we've got to color the rock. And so I'm going to add a little bit of gray to that. And then we've got some grass coming up by the rock, so I'm going to add a little old olive here just to show that this little rock is in the pasture or in the meadow. And then we've got some little flowers, so they're daisies. So daisies often have I don't know, they usually have a white flower in either a dark center or a yellow center. So I'm putting yellow centers here in the daisies. And then that's about all we're gonna do. Maybe add a little bit more green back here by the daisies. All right, so I'm gonna hold this up to the camera because I'm sure you couldn't really see what I was doing. But that's what he looks like when all you've done is done the pencils. All right. So let me share now how to blend this and make it just beautiful. So again, you're going to take the Stampin' Up! Blender pen. And again, you want to grab, I've got the Kleenex here that I used before because you want to wipe off if you're changing colors. So the first thing I'm going to do is start with the lightest color. And I'm just going to intensify the centers of those daisies. And then I'm going to do this little squirrel here. So we'll start with his tail up here and just kind of blend that all out. And you can see that the brown and the gray mixed together gives a pretty good squirrel color, I think. And so there he is. Some of that early espresso will carry over into his face, and it just looks so cute. And then once you have the squirrel colored, again, just take that excess off onto the Kleenex. And then you can go ahead and you can, I'm going to do those old olive grass pieces here. So those are now done. And so again, take off your excess and then go in and just kind of do that rock that's right here. All right, so it's done. I'm going to show you what that looks like. So I'm going to hold it up to the camera. And you can see how much more smoother and how good that looks. So he's a good looking squirrel. All right, so let's go ahead and do the rest of our card making here. So we have a piece of early espresso that's 5.5 by 8.5, and then I've scored it at 4 1/4. And as you can see, that just opens up into your standard size card. We're going to take this inside panel, and I'm just going to get this out of the way here so that we don't misplace it. So I'm just going to put it right in here, and then that clears off my desk a little bit as well. So the inside panel is done. I'm going to leave the inside blank because if you look at the card again, it says it's your day. So this could be a birthday card, or it could be a Father's Day card, or it could be a graduation card. So we're going to leave this up to the giver of the card, how that person wants to use it. All right, so then we're going to take, what did I do with it? I don't know what I did with it. Oh, here it is. We're going to take our completed panel here, and we're going to add it to a panel of old olive. Okay, so the old olive panel is 3 3/4 by 5 inches. And I'm going to flip this over and we're going to glue this down with some multi-purpose liquid glue. Or not. Let me see. I think I have to open this glue up. I haven't used it yet today. There we go. So we're just going to put a line of glue all the way around. And I like using the glue, of course, because it allows me a little bit of wiggle room so I can get this just where I want it on this old olive panel. And that looks pretty good. I'm liking it. There we go. So that is done. Oh, you guys are so nice. What great comments you're leaving. Thank you so much. So now to add some decoration to this card, we need to do our sentiment. So I want to share with you what we're doing for that. We have a 3/4 inch strip of vellum, and it's a little wider than what my panel is here because we're going to trim the edges down. And so let me grab, again, we're going to use some Stays On ink, and then I've got It's Your Day, so I'm just going to ink this up, and I'm hopefully going to stamp this somewhat accurately onto this panel. And there it is. Oh, it's a little crooked. Not a problem because I pre-stamped this. Sorry about that. But I did have one ready to go, but I was just showing you how to do it. And you know, one of the reasons it was crooked, for those of you that are wondering about my poor stamping ability, is because I can't get my head over the top to see what I'm doing on a video. So I always have a few extras in the background that I was able to stamp properly before I started the video. So this one is ready, and it's actually done well. I like it. And what we're going to do is we're actually, you know what I think we're going to do? We're going to put our ribbon on first. So yes, you can put ribbon on a masculine card. It just depends kind of how you do it. Maybe bows aren't such a big deal, but tie-ons are great, and so are wraps. So this is considered a wrap where we're just wrapping it around. So I've got the copper trim here, and I am wrapping it around, and I'll just secure it with Scotch tape. And again, this is going to be my little giveaway for you guys. So by sharing this video on your timeline, or by liking it or commenting on it, you get to be in the drawing that I'll hold on Friday morning. And if you're one of the winners, you'll get the card and 2 yards of our copper trim. So that's how that works. So this looks pretty good. Now we just need to do this exact same thing up here, and it'll be perfect. So let me trim this off just a little bit wider than our panel, and then we'll just do our wrap. And it kind of gives a more finished look to that edge. I kind of like the way that looks. So did you guys all have a good weekend? I suppose if you're from Minnesota, there was probably a little yard work going around. I know that even though it was a little cool here and a little chilly, I know there were still a lot of people trying to get yard work done. That's always a big chore when you've had snow on the grass for all winter long, and then when it all melts, oh my, it's such a mess, and you have to get out there and take care of it. Okay, yes, people are saying they need to try colored pencils. I agree, you should give them a try because you never know. It might be just that thing that you have a talent for that you didn't know unless you try. All right, so I've got to grab my piercing mat, and once you know, I don't think I have it here. Oh, for heaven's sakes. Well, where would my piercing mat be? You know what? I'm going to take my stamping mat, and I'm just going to use the piercing mat here. I'm just going to put it up here on the edge so then it won't ruin any stamping that I might do. So what I'm doing is I'm taking this It's Your Day stamped on vellum and just kind of centering it in. And then I'm going to take my Take Your Pick tool, and I'm going to use the pokey part, and we're just going to poke a hole into the vellum and into the watercolor paper on both sides. And then we're going to take our metallic brads, and we're going to grab a couple of copper ones so it will match the copper metallic ribbon or the copper trim. So I'm just going to take a couple of those little brads. We're going to lift this up, and I'm going to insert the brad here and here. And that way you don't have to worry about how to hide your adhesive, because you're actually attaching your vellum with brads, and then the brads become part of the accent of your card. So I'm going to flip it over. We're going to open these up. And this looks great. So let me do the same thing to this side. And that looks good too. And then I'm going to trim the edges even with my paper snips here. Same thing on this side. And there we go. So we have our card. Our card is almost done, you guys. Oh yes, the never-ending yard work. Yes, Yvonne, is that ever true? And I really don't mind yard work. I think it's kind of fun. It's refreshing to do something different on occasion. Get all of your muscle groups moving and working. But you know what? You can really sleep good the night that you do yard work. I think I have the best nights of my life when I do yard work. No waking up at 2 in the morning thinking about things, because once you've done yard work, you are usually asleep for a solid 8 hours. So it's great therapy if you have insomnia. All right, so let's go ahead and put this on our card now. It's just so beautiful. We're going to go ahead and do that with dimensionals. So we're going to put this right here and here. We're just going to go all over our card. Yes, I'm using a lot of dimensionals because I don't have really any supporting area to this card. There's nothing but dimensionals to support it. So I want to add some dimensionals to all these different segments of the card to give it support. All right, so here we go. So we're just going to center this in on the front of our card. And oh my goodness, it's done. It's beautiful. I hope you've enjoyed learning a little bit more about watercoloring pencils and how to use them on your projects. So here's the card I just did, and here is the card I did in advance, and it was so much fun to share this with you. So thank you so much, everybody, for stopping in today. I truly appreciate you. Again, my next video, my next Facebook Live will be next week, sometime next week. Not sure if that's going to be Monday or Tuesday, but if you watch my Facebook page, I usually put a notice up when my next one is coming. So you guys have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.